Hello everyone, I am back with another video. So in today's session we are going to look at a very fundamental and a very important concept of contract law. So for a layman, when they say a contract or an agreement, they mean one and the same thing. That is, this term is generally used interchangeably in our everyday life. But for a law student, do these words actually mean one and the same thing? Not really. There's a very big distinction between both of them. So that is what we are going to look at. So what I want you all to write down or note is the definition of contract. A contract is an agreement enforceable by law. See, a contract is an agreement enforceable by law. So this definition tells us that agreement and contract are two different things. That is, agreement is the starting point and contract is the end point. So when an agreement becomes enforceable by law, it becomes a contract. So from this, a very simple equation, if you may say, arises. Agreement plus enforceable by law is equal to contract. Now let us dive into it. So when a layman says an agreement or a contract, they mean one and the same thing, in the sense that in their head it is all a piece of paper or a stamp paper with something written on it, and both the parties have to honor that particular piece of paper. But that's not how it works for a lawyer. So now let us break down each of these parts of this agreement that I just mentioned to you and understand what really the difference between agreement and a contract is. An agreement, in simple words, is nothing but when two people agree to do a particular thing. That is an agreement. But a contract is a legally binding thing. So how do we arrive at a contract from an agreement? So like I said, an agreement is when two people agree to do a particular thing. But that is not enough. That particular thing has to be enforceable by law. And the best way to explain this to you is using an example. So let's dive into one. Say, I tell you that I will pay you 10,000 rupees in return for you giving me services of designing my website. So you design the website and I give you 10,000 rupees, or rather we agree to do this particular thing. This is known as an agreement. And tomorrow I have paid you the money and you have not yet delivered on what you said you would do. What can I do? What are the options that I have? I can approach the court, and what is the court going to do? Once court is convinced that what I have mentioned has actually happened, the court will direct you to either return my money or make you do that particular thing, which is that the court will enforce the promise upon you. The court will say that you have already promised this man that you would deliver a website for 10,000 rupees, so you will honor that particular promise or you will return that money to this person. And that is what enforceable by law means, and that is what makes the difference between an agreement and a contract. When an agreement becomes enforceable by law, it becomes a contract. So this is something you have to understand very, very well to be able to differentiate between both. And what was the difference between both? That in one promise, two people agreed to do a particular thing. Let us take another example. You promised to supply me with illegal drugs for 10,000 rupees. Now imagine I have given you the 10,000 rupees and you have not delivered those drugs to me. What will happen? Will I be able to go to the court and tell the court that this person took 10,000 rupees from me and is not supplying drugs to me? Definitely not. The court cannot enforce this particular agreement because it's an illegal agreement. And therein lies the difference between agreement and a contract. An agreement is always enforceable by law. Enforceable by law as in that the court can enforce that particular agreement onto the parties. Make them perform if one of them refuses to perform it. So in that essence, every contract is an agreement because it is the starting point of a contract. But every agreement does not become a contract because for agreement to become a contract, it has to be enforceable by law. Just for some reference, I will also recommend that you watch 2 of my past videos that I have shared on this platform to get a better understanding and examples on what contract is and what are the prerequisites of a contract. I hope this video was helpful to you, and we will come back to you with more such videos. Thank you so much and have a nice day.